like to acknowledging the fact that we all work together in terms of monitoring discussion on issues on ozone depleting substances, freedom of understanding and customs. We have over the years started including other enforcement agencies like police. We have the NFA. We've also had Fiji ports.
Government ministries, my team from the Ministry of Waterways and Environment, ladies and gentlemen, Bulavinaka, Namaste, and good morning to all of you. I'm so heartened to be here. It's a delight to be back here to meet some of you known before from previous trainings and some of you who I'm seeing for the first time. And so on behalf of the Minister, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you participating at this National Training for Enforcement Officials. To me, a gathering like this means two things. One is, it's never nice to be in enforcement. I sit on top of two very diverse portfolios. One is a regulator, an enforcer, and the other is a practical doer. And I'll tell you how. The waterways are here to clear your drains, your rivers, dredge your rivers, and do all kinds of things to avert flooding. But in doing so, there are rules to follow as well in times of emergency. So dredging is not a joke. When you start dredging, you dredge organisms, you dredge a whole lot of things, and species as well, which are at risk in riverbeds. So then comes the enforcer on the other side. There are times as colleagues we sit together and yarn, and sometimes even get into arguments over enforcement comes over, our regulatory efforts come over emergency as well. So it's very important role that enforcement plays, because if there's no enforcement today, we'll be living in jungles. So the laws that are put in place are meant to bring in discipline, and the rules and regulations that are put in place are meant to bring some form of semblance in everything that you do. In saying so, I started my statement saying it's not a great place to be in as an enforcer, because you can't be people pleasers. Because enforcers are never liked by people all the time. There's some people who like you, some people who wouldn't like you. But the way I've found managing an enforcement regulatory authority as well as a service delivery arm is to be able to have a proper understanding of what we do. Where we get stuck is when we do not have the right tools. Training is a very important tool, because training is knowledge, and knowledge is power, and power is required to enforce rules. So it's very simple and clear logic. If you want to enforce, you need power, and power does not come from vacuum. Power is given to you. It's delegated to you through the law, through the legislation. And the only way that you're going to get that power and knowledge is by learning and having training. So I'm not an environmentalist. I was one of those people who used to sit at the fringes and mock at environmentalists in my previous lives. Because when you are ignorant of something, you do not really know the value that that environment, or for that matter, anything that you don't know can bring to the table or bring to your lives. So when I really got into this portfolio, I came into I came from Housing Authority. I was there as a CEO for a short while. So I came because it was one merged ministry of housing, local government and environment. I had not much of a clue, although my parents were environmentalists, I had no much of a clue because I did not take any active interest in it. So I came through public service as a permanent secretary, coming into as a housing permanent secretary, but of course I managed environment as well. But it so happened when I started learning, I knew the basics of environment from when I went to school, but when I learned how enforcement affects the prosperity of environment, and in turn affects the prosperity or impacts the prosperity of families, of citizenry throughout the world, it made a very special impact in my life. And today, I'm the converted, I'm part of the converted who can stand in front of audience and not just speak from here or just from here, but from here, because I know and I have believed in it. The only difference that made was knowledge. So if I have to talk about my personal life in front of an audience like that, it's because I believe in it. And I want you folks to believe in training, because that's very important as enforcers. So I really would like to express my heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the Fiji Revenue and Customs Services for the collaboration with the department. That's another important thing. You know, like I said, it's a lonely place to enforce all the time. And when you're lonely, it's important to collaborate. Because if you do not collaborate, you lose out. You then singled out. So it's very important as officials, as inspectors, that you work together and collaborate together as well. All parties that are linked to the Montreal Protocol have committed themselves to eliminating production of some key chemicals and gases that come under the regime of the ODS. And in Fiji, we do not produce or manufacture ODS. The focus is, of course, mainly on the important exportation of ODS and ODS-based alternatives. To guarantee that the Montreal Protocol's phase-out target of the ODS is met, all of us should feel not just encouraged, but compelled to establish the strong import and exporting regime, licensing regime, to help control and monitor the amount of ODS entering and leaving our borders. I mean, with 333 islands, such a maritime space that Fiji is situated geographically, there are a lot of porous holes across the various spots within Fiji, and all of us are aware of it. And that's got nothing to do with our weak spots, it's how nature has placed our country. So when we are in a vulnerable situation like that, I've known of not ODS exports, but I've caught myself as permanent secretary, a smuggler who was about to take a species out through Denarau, out of Denarau port. He had nothing, declared everything was clear, but his yacht was in one of the Mamanudas found with 5 iguanas, Fijian iguanas. So between Denarau, Port Denarau, where he exited Fiji, officially his passports exited out, between Denarau and Mamanudas, he's picked up 5 iguanas from one of those islands. And there's absolutely, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm saying this from what I knew a couple of years ago, there is no, unless the border patrol catches him or some catches him, there is no documented desk or a documented spot or space within those oceans to stop, check his passport, check nothing. As far as his passport is concerned, he's exited Fiji. But he still can stop in several islands before he leaves the Fijian waters. So I was just with one example that I got personally involved when we then prosecuted and all that. That's after that. When we prosecuted, we found he had 7 passports, 7 different countries. So we're working, we're putting enforcement in place against a very sophisticated and within a sophisticated environment where we really do not operate like how we used to about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The world has become a different place. So if you're talking about ODS exports and imports illegally, then we need to up our ante. And how we up our ante is because through trainings like this where we sit and train ourselves. Transborder environmental crime, as I said, is a growing problem with, of course, serious consequences. And when a nation like Fiji is obligated to international protocols, like the Montreal Protocol, we are obliged. And if other countries come to know that we have a weaker regime in licensing, weaker regime in stopping smuggling, then world standing, people will mock at us. When our Prime Minister goes on international stages, as we read in the news, and puts out ambitious statements, and puts out statements that are really good for Fiji, then there are people sitting in the audience and probably thinking, well, it's good to hear, but how does it happen in Fiji? So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that you pay attention to this training and train yourselves. And also, I would really encourage not just the department, but all of you to form some form of a collaboration where you're able to, have a WhatsApp group or a Viber group where you're able to share your experiences, share photographs, share information. So beyond today's training or beyond tomorrow's training, you're able to go out there and still have links and friends. I know all of us have different groups. You have your Viber friends, you have your family, you've got cousins, friends, all the kind of stuff, workplace groups. But it's important that for your work professional building, that you link each other and link out of the department as well. And I would strongly suggest that the department initiates something like that, so you're able to not lose the value of training beyond the confines of tomorrow. So with those words, I would like to really stress on relationships. That WhatsApp thing was about the relationship. How you build it at all levels, not just at officer level, but at a supervisor, manager level as well. And I'm talking from my level as well to your chief executives, to your top management. So at all ranks, we have relationships that help not just share information, but also share experiences as well. So in keeping with the objectives, this training will have to be interactive. You need to talk a lot more among yourselves, share your knowledge and experiences. One more thing I found in training is that when you share live experiences, it's like storytelling. Storytelling is very powerful. And it's just not for the entertainment value for that moment, for that hour, but it is also for you to be able to remember. And I'm sure if you sit here, you will be able to remember the stories you learned at school and at uni. Similarly, if you learn from your experiences as in the form of storytelling, probably somewhere in your workshop during today or tomorrow, you have a session where people are able to share their experiences in compliance, in surveillance, and in prosecution. And I'm not sure if some of you have gone through prosecution training. I'll tell you one more thing that's very important. Some of my team members have been through prosecution training, so they know how to prepare a case, file, get it up to the prosecution level, so things can go much faster and quicker as well. So as a follow-up, like I said, you participants are encouraged to use this material information and also send it across to your colleagues and your friends and share what you learned here. So this information is disseminated to so many other people too. So one of those key things before I finish is that the ministry and the department, of course, is focused on phasing out HCFCs into HFCs. So there'll be a lot more, not just the workshop, but live events and programs and campaigns that the Department of Environment, the ODS unit, will be undertaking over the next weeks and months, and we welcome you to partake and be part of that. So in closing, let me wish you all a fruitful workshop for today, and have great deliberations and tackling all your common challenges, and have a great time and fun. Thank you, and God bless Fiji.